I wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the hospital that night. That's what made it all the more satisfying. Melissa had kissed me on the cheek just 5 hours earlier, tied her hair into a bun like she always did before a shift, adjusted her badge, and told me, "Don't wait up. Double shift again." She even groaned like it was the 6th night in a row, like I should have felt sorry for her. I almost did. Almost. But I wasn't stupid. Or at least not anymore. She'd been using that line for months. The late shift excuse had become her shield, and I'd let it slide too long. Until that night. Because this time, a friend of mine, Lance, whose sister worked in the admin department, called me. "Man, Melissa's not on the schedule tonight. She hasn't been for weeks," he said. I didn't even react. I just nodded like I'd known it all along. Because deep down, I had. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. So I drove. Not to the hospital. To a downtown Italian place called Ferentino's. She had mentioned it once before, too quickly, too casually. I parked across the street and waited, engine off, hands clenched on the steering wheel. At 8:43 p.m., she walked out, laughing, in heels I hadn't seen before, clutching the arm of a man in a navy blazer with salt and pepper hair and the kind of watch that costs more than my mortgage. They looked like they'd been doing this for years. I didn't know who he was. Not then. But it didn't matter yet. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. I just watched. They walked to his black SUV. She didn't look back once. When they drove off, I sat there another 10 minutes, staring at the restaurant's glowing sign, before finally driving home. I poured a whiskey, stood in the kitchen, and tried to breathe. That's when her phone buzzed on the counter. She'd forgotten it, probably too busy brushing up on her fake nurse shift. I picked it up. Notifications, texts, work emails, and one photo, a selfie, of the two of them, at Ferentino's, taken maybe 20 minutes before I saw them. Her face was tilted toward him, lips inches from his cheek. I tapped on the contact. His name? Gordon Ellis. It sounded familiar, but I didn't place it until I searched him online. CEO of the entire hospital system. My wife's boss. Suddenly, it made sense. The weird weekend retreats, the surprise bonuses, the perfume she wore only on on-call nights. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. That was when something snapped. And not in the way you'd expect. I didn't want revenge. I wanted precision. I wanted her to see what it felt like to be small. Replaceable. Exposed. But not just by me, by someone who mattered to her. I didn't sleep that night. I wrote down a plan. The next morning, I found Gordon's wife. Her name was Rachel. A simple Facebook search, some LinkedIn digging, and within an hour, I had her office line. She was a public relations director at a nonprofit downtown. I rehearsed what I'd say as I walked into her office building, heart pounding like a drum in my ears. When she came out to meet me, I expected someone fragile. Instead, I got a woman with perfectly sharp eyeliner, dark red lipstick, and an energy that said she had been burned before. "You're here about Gordon," she said before I even opened my mouth. I nodded. She sighed and motioned me inside. Her office was minimalist, clean, one of those setups where everything had its place, unlike my life. I showed her the photo. "This was last night," I said. She took it, eyes unreadable. Then she looked at me, not angry, not shocked, just tired. "You're not the first to show me something like this," she said. "But you might be the first husband." I was too stunned to speak. She stood, walked over to a small fridge, and pulled out a chilled bottle of water. "What do you want from me?" she asked. And I told her, "Just hear me out. I have an idea." She listened. For 45 minutes, she didn't say a word. When I finished, her eyes locked on mine, and she said, "You're serious?" I nodded. And then she smiled. Not a polite smile. A wicked, knowing grin that told me we were about to become the worst mistake our spouses ever made. I left her office feeling lighter than I had in weeks. But I also knew this wasn't going to be easy. Melissa was sharp. She would notice if I acted strange. So I had to be better. I played the good husband. I cooked dinner that night, even ironed her scrubs for her. She smiled and kissed me, like she hadn't just lied to my face the night before. "Thanks, babe," she said, slipping her hand into my back pocket. "I have another shift tomorrow night. You'll be okay here." I smiled. "Of course. Do what you need to do." She had no idea I already was. The next day, I woke up with a kind of focus I hadn't felt in years. The kind of clarity that comes not from forgiveness, but from decision. I didn't second-guess myself. I didn't stare off into the distance wondering what went wrong. I knew what went wrong. I married a woman who could look me in the eyes, lie straight through her teeth, and then kiss another man before dessert. So I started rehearsing. Not lines, but presence. I studied how Gordon walked in interviews, how Melissa looked when she laughed at his jokes at hospital events, how Rachel stood with her shoulders back like nothing could touch her. Because we'd need all of that. Rachel and I agreed to meet again after work, this time at her place. She lived in a condo downtown, sleek, modern, lots of glass, like everything inside had to reflect light. She poured 2 glasses of red and kicked off her heels before she even sat down. "You sure you want to go through with this?" she asked. "Because once it happens, there's no undoing it." I nodded. "I'm not interested in undoing anything." She handed me the wine and we clinked glasses. "Good. Because Gordon's company Gala is in 6 days." 6 days. That was our window. The event was black tie, invite only. Hosted at the downtown hotel where the hospital system held its annual fundraiser. Melissa had mentioned it just last week. Said she wasn't sure if she wanted to go. Too stuffy, she claimed, but I knew better. She was going. And now, so were we. The next day, Rachel sent me the names of the event planners. I called in a favor from a buddy I used to work with who handled AV production for corporate galas. "You need in?" he asked. "No problem. I can make you look like a donor sponsor." Boom. Done. Rachel arranged for a designer dress and stylist. She even booked us a suite in the same hotel, just in case we needed a place to regroup after. This wasn't some childish scheme. We were building an experience. A performance. And not for drama, but for truth. For exposure. The kind of moment that pierces a lie so cleanly it leaves the air humming. Meanwhile, Melissa kept up her routine. Same tired excuse. Same late shift stories. One night, just 2 days before the gala, she came home late, hair tousled, cheeks flushed, and climbed into bed without saying a word. I kept my arm around her. I didn't flinch. "Long night?" I asked. "Yeah," she whispered. "Emergency C-section. You okay?" "Just tired." I kissed her forehead and smiled into the darkness. My heart didn't race anymore. There was nothing left to panic about. The war wasn't coming. It was already planned. The night before the event, Rachel and I met again. This time, she looked different. Not just dressed up, empowered. Her eyes sparkled in a way I hadn't seen before, like something inside her had been sleeping and now refused to go back to bed. "We're not doing this for them," she said. "We're doing this for us." I didn't fully understand what she meant until later. The night of the gala arrived like thunder. I put on a tailored black tux, tightened my tie, and took the elevator down to the lobby where Rachel was waiting. She wore an emerald green gown that hugged her frame and lit up the room. Heads turned before we even entered the ballroom. I recognized a few faces. Doctors, board members, even Melissa's department head. But Melissa herself? Not yet. I ordered us drinks at the bar, one hand resting gently on Rachel's waist. She played her part perfectly, laughing softly, brushing her fingers along my shoulder, leaning in close. We weren't overdoing it. We were just enough. And then, there she was, Melissa, standing on the far side of the ballroom in a long navy blue dress, holding a champagne flute. And right beside her, Gordon Ellis. His arm was loosely draped around her back, too casual for a professional event, too familiar for anything innocent. She turned her head just slightly, scanning the room, and then she saw us. Her eyes met mine, froze. Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to speak, but forgot how. She blinked fast, then again, and again. Rachel leaned in and whispered, "Showtime." I set down my drink, turned toward her, and placed my hand softly on her cheek. Her gaze locked onto mine, calm and confident. I didn't hesitate. I kissed her. Slow. Certain. Not vulgar, elegant, but unmistakably intimate. I could feel Melissa's stare burning across the ballroom. Her posture changed instantly, shoulders stiffened, mouth tightened, one heel half lifted like she might take a step forward and stop herself at the last second. Gordon looked confused at first, then realized who I was. I pulled back from the kiss and smiled at Rachel. The room didn't stop, but you could feel the temperature shift. Like something important had just happened, but no one could name it yet. Rachel took a sip of her wine, turned toward Melissa's side of the room, and offered the smallest, most polite nod. A nod that said, "I see you. I see everything." Melissa didn't move. She didn't blink. But her eyes told the whole story. Every single beat. And we weren't even done yet. The moment after the kiss hung in the air like perfume, thick, undeniable, and lingering in every corner of that ballroom. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a message, and Melissa had received it in full. She didn't rush over. No dramatic scene, no screaming across the floor. That would have required a kind of control she no longer had. Instead, she froze in place, hand clutched tighter around her champagne glass like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Gordon leaned in and whispered something in her ear. She didn't respond, just stared. That alone told me more than any argument ever could have. Rachel and I didn't linger in that one spot. We moved gracefully through the room, weaving between guests, shaking hands, exchanging pleasantries with people neither of us cared about. We weren't hiding. We were floating. I caught glimpses of Melissa the whole time. She tried to laugh with someone. Failed. Tried to eat something from a passing tray. Couldn't. Her eyes kept darting back to us like she was trying to rewrite what she had seen in her head. But she couldn't. She knew. And now she was unraveling. It was around the time the keynote speaker took the stage that Rachel leaned in and said, "Let's go find Gordon." I gave her a look. "You sure?" She smirked. "He needs to understand something." So we made our way toward the far end of the room, where Gordon now stood with 3 men in suits, clearly trying to pretend nothing had just happened. He saw us approaching and stiffened, mid-sentence. The other men turned to look as Rachel extended her hand to Gordon with a casual grace that made my heart pound. "Gordon," she said, "so glad to see you again." He took her hand like it burned. "Rachel," he muttered, eyes flicking to me. "And this is my guest for the evening," she said without missing a beat. "He's been helping me with some things. Sorting out truths from illusions. You know how it is." The men around him glanced at each other, clearly sensing something beneath the surface. Gordon's smile faltered. "Well, I hope you're enjoying yourself," he said. "Oh, we are," I replied. "Very much." Rachel turned to the other men and said, "Gentlemen, would you excuse us? I need just a quick word with my husband." That word sliced the air. One of the men coughed into his glass and nodded. They left without question. Gordon stood there, all alone now, facing both of us. His authority stripped. His balance gone. Rachel stepped closer. "You know," she said, voice soft, "I always wondered what it would take for you to stop lying. Turns out it just takes the right audience." Gordon tried to speak, but Rachel raised her hand. "Don't. Save whatever excuse you've rehearsed for someone else. I'm not here to fight with you. I'm here to say goodbye." "Rachel," he tried. She took a step closer, lowering her voice so only we could hear. "I know everything, and I let it slide for longer than I should have. But this time, you didn't just cheat. You got sloppy. And worse, you got boring." She turned to me and smiled. "Come on. There's better champagne upstairs." And just like that, we walked away. Not in a hurry. Not angry. Calm. Elegant. I didn't even look back at Gordon. I didn't have to. I could feel his silence behind us like a weight. When we got to the hotel suite Rachel had booked, we both collapsed into the couch and laughed. It wasn't giddy laughter. It was the laughter of release, of shaking something off that had clung to our lives too long. Rachel poured us each a drink, kicked off her heels, and said, "I've wanted to do that for years." "You're not mad?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, I'm free." I understood exactly what she meant. And still, there was one final piece left. Melissa hadn't confronted me yet. She hadn't texted, hadn't called, which meant she wasn't done pretending. That night, I went home alone. I didn't expect her to be there, but she was. Sitting on the edge of the bed, shoes off, still in her gala dress, makeup smudged around the eyes like she'd wiped them too hard. She looked up at me as I stepped inside. "You kissed her." No anger. No shock. Just those words. "You kissed Rachel Ellis." I said nothing. Just took off my tie, set my jacket on the chair. She stood up. "Why?" I met her gaze without blinking. "Why do you think?" "That's not an answer," she snapped. "Neither was, I have a double shift tonight." Her jaw twitched. I could see the cracks forming. "You don't understand, okay? Gordon and I, it wasn't what you think." "It never is," I said flatly. "You lied. Again. For months." "You were never there," she said suddenly, voice rising. "You work late, you barely talk, and when you do it's like I'm invisible." I nodded slowly. "So you found someone who made you feel seen?" "Yes," she admitted, almost breathless. "And now you know. But you had to go and make a show of it? You had to humiliate me." "You humiliated yourself," I said, my voice low. You kissed your boss in secret. I kissed his wife in public. She didn't respond. She just stood there, breathing hard, shoulders rising and falling. I sat down at the edge of the bed and looked at her. This thing between us. It's already over. You just didn't realize it yet. She stared at me for a long time. So what now? She asked. I looked down at my hands, then back up at her. Now we stopped pretending. She sat slowly beside me, hands folded, eyes locked on the floor. And for the first time since it all began, she didn't have anything to say. The house didn't feel like home anymore. After that night, Melissa moved through the rooms like a guest too proud to admit she'd overstayed. She didn't sleep in our bed, just laid on the couch some nights, or came home after I was already gone for work. When we crossed paths in the kitchen, she acted like nothing had shattered. She still used the same coffee mug, still hummed to herself out of habit, still scrolled through her phone with that slight upward curve in her lip like the world was fine. But I saw through it. We both did. It wasn't tension. It was vacancy. Like someone had broken into the house and stolen the air. The silence wasn't heavy. It was just empty. That next week, I barely spoke to her. I didn't ask questions. Didn't push. I just lived. I went to work. I saw friends again. I met with Rachel once more. Nothing romantic, just closure. We sat at a quiet cafe, both dressed in casual clothes. No performance this time. How's he taking it? I asked her. She raised her eyebrows. Pathetic. He sent roses to my office. 2 dozen. Like petals could fix 5 years of betrayal. You going to respond? Already did. Had them donated to the women's shelter. She sipped her coffee and smiled without looking at me. You? She's still in the house. Like she's hoping I'll forget everything. They always do, Rachel said. They think time is a reset button. I looked at her, truly looked. She wasn't just strong, she was done. And I admired that more than anything. We didn't make promises or trade numbers. When we stood to leave, we just hugged. Not tight. Not desperate. Just real. Melissa finally spoke 3 days later. She was standing by the front door, purse on her shoulder, keys in hand. I think we need to talk. I looked up from my laptop. Then talk. Not here. Can we go somewhere? I stared at her for a long moment, then closed my laptop. Fine. Your choice. She picked the park near the lake. One of those scenic spots with benches overlooking the water, where people walked dogs or fed ducks and assumed nothing ugly ever happened there. We sat side by side, and for a few minutes, she didn't say anything. Then, you don't touch me anymore. I turned my head slightly. Because you're not mine anymore. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Is that really how you feel? No, I said. That's how I know. She closed her eyes. I didn't plan it, okay? Gordon wasn't some long-time plan. It just happened. Things like that don't just happen 6 months in a row, Melissa. You don't know what it's like to feel invisible in your own marriage. That's funny, I said, because I felt the exact same thing. And I didn't go kiss someone else's spouse in an Italian restaurant. You made me look like a fool, she muttered, still staring at the lake. I let that sit a moment. You are a fool, Melissa. So am I, for trusting you. She turned sharply to face me. So what? That kiss with Rachel was just revenge. No, I said. It was honesty. She shook her head, laughing bitterly. You think that makes you better than me? No, I said again. It makes me done with you. Her face changed then. Not anger, not even sadness. Fear. She saw it now. Saw the finality of it. You're really going to throw away everything? She asked. You already did, I said. I'm just cleaning up after you. She reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled it back. Not harshly. Just enough. I'm not your safe place anymore. For a second, she looked like she might break down. But then she did what she always did, straightened her shoulders, blinked the emotion away, and pretended none of it mattered. So what now? Now you move out. I'll give you the weekend. After that, I changed the locks. Wow, she said, forcing a laugh. You really rehearsed this, didn't you? No, I said. I lived it. That night, she didn't come home. Maybe she stayed at a hotel. Maybe with Gordon. I didn't care. I poured myself a glass of bourbon, turned on some Miles Davis, and watched the city lights flicker from the back porch. For the first time in a long while, I felt peace. Not joy, not triumph. Just peace. The kind that comes when the pretending stops. That weekend, I stayed out of the house. Gave her space to pack. When I returned late Sunday evening, the house was cleaner than it had been in weeks. Her clothes gone. Her perfume scrubbed from the bathroom air. A single envelope on the kitchen counter with my name on it. Inside, a note. Handwritten. 3 lines. I'm sorry I didn't tell the truth. You deserved someone better than I was willing to be. I hope one day you find her. No name. No plea for forgiveness. Just that. I folded it, set it in a drawer, and turned off the lights. The next morning, I woke up alone. No shadow on the pillow beside me. No scent of someone who didn't love me anymore. Just air. Real, clean air. The truth had finally settled. And it was quiet. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of silence, solitude, and recovery. The house was mine again, though it felt different. Not in a hollow way, more like it had exhaled. The tension that used to cling to the walls was gone. No more walking on eggshells. No more pretending not to know what I already did. Just clarity. And peace. But something unexpected happened on a Thursday morning, when I received an email from the hospital's corporate office. It was labeled, Confidential, Staff Code of Conduct Report. My heart rate picked up for a second before I opened it. Inside was a simple message. You may be contacted regarding recent events at the Hospital Foundation Gala involving staff members. A formal review is underway. There was a number at the bottom for follow-up. I didn't call it. I didn't need to. I knew what this was. Gordon's world was beginning to crack. I hadn't intended to destroy him professionally. That was never the point. But I also wasn't going to pretend I felt bad about it. He played recklessly and dragged others down with him. Rachel must have said something. Or someone else saw the signs. Whatever it was, the machine was turning against him now. And once it starts, there's no stopping it. That same day, I went to grab lunch at a small diner I used to frequent before everything went sideways. I hadn't been back in months, but I wanted something familiar. Something real. I took a seat near the window and ordered a burger and fries. And just before my plate arrived, I saw her. Melissa, standing outside the glass, looking straight at me. She didn't wave. Didn't smile. Just stared. Then pushed the door open and walked inside like she belonged. I didn't flinch. I leaned back, arms folded, and waited. She sat down across from me without asking. You look good, she said. Better than you did. That's what honesty does, I replied. She hesitated, glanced around. I heard about Gordon. They're investigating him. Internal complaints, ethics board. He might be done. Should have thought of that before dating the boss, I said. Especially at a company gala. She sighed, rubbing her temples. I didn't know you were capable of that kind of cruelty. I leaned forward, calm but firm. You thought I was too soft. Too loyal. You mistook decency for weakness. But what I did wasn't cruel, Melissa. It was deliberate. And it was overdue. She didn't argue. She just sat there, shrinking slightly in her seat. So this is it then? She asked. No second chance. There was never a first one, I said. Not after the second lie. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she nodded. I just wanted you to know. I regret it. Not just getting caught. All of it. Good. I said. And that was the end of that. She left without finishing her water. I didn't watch her walk out the door. I didn't need to. She no longer lived in any part of my future. I finished my meal and walked out into the fresh afternoon sun. The next week, I got a call I didn't expect. Rachel. Her voice was calm, steady. He's been suspended indefinitely, she said. They're offering him the chance to resign quietly. And you? I asked. I'm fine. Moving forward. Just closed on a condo in another city. Needed something new. Something mine. I smiled. That sounds exactly right. There was a pause, a soft silence. Then she added, that kiss, at the gala, I hope you know it wasn't just about them. For me, it was a goodbye to everything fake. It was that for me too. Take care of yourself, she said. And if you ever find yourself in Denver, there's a coffee shop with your name on it. I'll keep that in mind. After we hung up, I stood in the kitchen with my phone in my hand, and for the first time in a long while, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't broken. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was free. That weekend, I attended a small gathering hosted by some mutual friends, people who'd seen Melissa and me together over the years, and now looked at me with quiet curiosity. I didn't explain anything. Didn't need to. Stories travel. But one moment stood out. A woman named Claire, someone I barely knew outside of these circles, pulled me aside near the end of the night. I just wanted to say, she said softly, the way you handled yourself, it was powerful. You didn't explode. You showed restraint. But you also showed strength. I didn't know what to say, so I nodded, thanked her, and stepped outside. The night air was cool, crisp. The sky open above me like a fresh page. I knew then that what I'd done, What Rachel and I had orchestrated wasn't just a reaction. It was a revelation. It exposed what needed to be exposed. It forced masks off faces that had been smiling too long in the dark. And most importantly, it allowed me to reclaim something I hadn't realized I'd lost, my self-respect. Days turned to weeks. I renovated the guest room, gave away the old photos, repainted the walls in the hall. It wasn't about erasing her. It was about rebuilding me, on my terms. One morning, while sipping coffee on the porch, I thought about everything. The lies, the surveillance, the kiss, the silence. And then I laughed. Because somehow, through all the betrayal and chaos, I didn't just survive, I evolved. And to anyone out there stuck in the same kind of quiet war, let me say this. You don't have to scream to be heard. Sometimes, all it takes is one well-timed truth. And the right audience. If you made it this far, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. I want to know, have you ever exposed a lie in a way they never saw coming? Let's talk about it.